Let's start again. Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video, folks. Welcome back to my channel. K Diaries there, K Days here. Welcome back to my channel. And today we are predicting Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League quarter-final second leg and Newcastle versus Crystal Palace. Aston Villa have been in excellent form over the last couple of months and they now need a big performance if they are going to turn around their title with French champions, Paris Saint-Germain. So Aston Villa coming into this one of a very impressive 3-0 hammering of relegated Southampton, that's in Mary's Down on the south coast at the weekend. But the Villains rump to victory. They rump into victory, don't they? They certainly rump into victory, don't they? Drivers on, on the south coast at the weekend. But the Villains romped to that victory courtesy of goals from Ollie Watkins and Darnell Mallam and John McGinn. But they now enjoyed 8 victories in their last 9 matches across all competitions, with the only game they failed to win being the first leg of this tie at Paris last week. So whereby they took the lead but eventually suffered a 3-1 loss to the Parisans, but PSG went behind against the run of play last week due to Morgan Rogers' strike at the end and came off the canvas to win 3-1. But Lewis and Crowley's side are chasing the treble this season. They have already wrapped up the League 1 title, but where they were granted a weekend off over the last few days to face Stade Reims in the final couple of France next month. So Unai Emery has been unable to regularly produce impressive results and performances beyond expectation and mightily derailed in playing almost unravelled at high level football. Before you get into the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and thumbs up, and it's free to do. Let's smash 24 subscribers and let's smash about probably 20 likes, I would say. But 2-1 would have given them a real chance last week, but they face a much tougher test to take on a 2-goal deficit to extra time. And PSG would have perhaps been best suited to playing on the counter-attack in the game. They don't have to chase, but it is unlikely that Lewis Inquili will do that. So best team scoring would appear a good bet for this one at Villa Park, but I'm going for 2-2. There will be goals in it, but PSG will progress 5-3 to the semi-finals. There's certainly much on the line, don't they? Certainly much on the line, isn't it? Right. Borussia Dortmund versus Barcelona. This Champions League quarter-final looks as though has already been wrapped up after a demolishing Borussia Dortmund by Barcelona. So Borussia Dortmund reached the final of the Champions League last season. Despite an average performances in the Bundesliga, seeing them finish outside the top 4, they have regressed even further domestically, but they have still made it deep into Europe. Their deep run into the Europe, though, looks all but over after their 4-0 annihilation at the hands of Barcelona at the Newcastle last week, with Rafael opened the scoring. The Saxons before Robert Lewandowski before brace, and Lamajal toe-poed, sold the hammering of Barca. As far since then, Husky Flink has really rotated for the bunker lead, but even they have still managed to squeeze themselves over the line. 3 points in the community of Madrid at the weekend, thanks to a 1-0 win of the Juris Sancho's own goal. But third time in 6, Barcelona could make it through to the semi-finals for the third time in 16 years. Blimey. Borussia Dortmund currently just sit outside the top 7 and European spots in the Bundesliga, but although they have been improved under Nico Kovacic, but they have most recently shared a 2-2 draw with Bayern Bayern Munich at the Ivoli Arena, but derail Calazars at the weekend. But Barcelona have scored 146 goals in 49 games across all competitions so far this season, while as Barca have already all but wrapped up their place in the semi-finals. They are unlikely to take their foot off the throat, but I'm going 3-2 Barcelona, and Barcelona will progress. Let's see, 7-2. Is it 7-2 on the aggregate for Barcelona? Yeah, possibly. Don't know how many. Come on. Right, tomorrow, the big one. So many occasions in recent times, the phrase "they can't win this one" has been replied on Real Madrid in their Champions League. Yet they're almost already gone to win. Carlo Salazio has a squad that doesn't make much sense on paper, but their performances have shown that throughout the season, Los Barcelos still somehow remain in contention to win the treble this season. But first of those three could do as soon as this week. In the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final at the Emirates Stadium, North London last week, Arsenal produced an impressive second half performance to dispatch Real Madrid by 3-0, take a massive step towards the semi-finals. England international Declan Rice scored a brace of frankly remarkable free kicks before Mikel Merino notched the late on for the Gunners too. And Arsenal haven't played in the Champions League semi-finals since losing to Manchester United in 2010-2011 campaign. Arsenal once again drew to the Premier League at the weekend, being pegged back to a 1-1 draw by the capital city rivals Brentford. At the same happened the weekend before against Everton at Goodison Park. That means there are 13 points adrift of league leaders Liverpool. They have no chance of winning the Premier League, right now. But this was the first leg at 0-0 draw at Arsenal. Would have head to Bernabeu and simply look to keep things tight. Probably succeed in doing so, while also potentially nicking a goal on a counter. However, the dynamic is completely different, but there'll be temptation too deeply and simply frustrating Madrid side. And that he knows only need minutes to turn the tie in this on its head. And Arsenal should come out on top in the tie, but Madrid winning on the night remains likely. But I'm going to go for Madrid to win 2-1, but Arsenal will progress 4-2 on aggregate. Yep, 4-2. Yep, 4-2 aggregate. Inter Milan versus Bayern Munich. This is a repeat of the 2010 Champions League final. Began of the Inter pulling off an impressive 2-1 defeat of Bayern Munich in the first leg last week. Inter Milan, the manager, the former Lazio boss, but after drawing with AFC Milan in the semi-finals on the Coppa Italia over Napoli. Right, Bayern Munich need to up their game. Bayern Munich suffering from several injuries, but we've still got Harry Kane. Still, but Inter coming into this one on the back of a 3-1 defeat of Cagliari at the weekend, courtesy of goals of Marcelo Kovacic and that performance of being in King fluency of last season. But they move into the Champions League final in the last 3 years after being runner-ups, treble winners at Manchester City in 2022-23 a couple of years ago. But I'm going for Inter Milan to win. I'm going for 0-0, but Inter Milan will progress on aggregate. Right, let's move on to Newcastle. Let's move on to Newcastle versus Crystal Palace. Newcastle United have been relentless in their good form as of late as they chase Champions League qualification ahead of facing a strong Crystal Palace side at St James's Park. Newcastle were without the manager Eddie Howe at the weekend. The Englishman has taken to hospital on Saturday, but the Magpies, with Jadon Tyndall at the helm, continue their excellent form had humiliated Manchester United by 4-1 at St James's Park. They went ahead in the first half via Sweden international Alexander Isak before Anacho Garnacho brought Manchester United back level before half time. However, Newcastle ran riot in the second half with a brace of Harvey Barnes as well as Sandro Toile goal. Crystal Palace has been one of the best teams in the country since mid to late October. They have seemingly closed the gap on European spots, while also having the FA Cup semi-final against Aston Villa to look forward to later this month on the horizon. But the Seagulls went 2-0 up at the Etihad Stadium on Saturday away to Manchester City, eventually suffered 5-2 losses. Citizens' goals from Omar Mamus and Kevin De Bruyne and Matzo Kovacic, James McTee and Nico O'Reilly. So, Newcastle have now enjoyed 5 successive victories across all competitions since losing to Brighton and Hove Albion in the last 16 of the FA Cup, which has included winning the EFL Cup against Liverpool at Wembley, and now they face a Crystal Palace side that do begin this week sitting in the bottom half of the table, but they are chasing European qualification just about. This should be quite an entertaining affair, but all belted Newcastle remain favourites with their home advantage. I'm going for Newcastle to win 2-0. Right. Let's just move on to the Europa League. Moving to Europa League. Atletico versus Athletic Club will host Europa League final at the San Mas, and the dream is that they'll be involved in that ahead of this quarter-final second leg against Rangers this week. The first leg, it was mentally frustrating for Athletic, but they were somehow held to a goalless draw at the Innsbruck Glasgow by the 2022 Europa League runner-ups Rangers, despite Buchanan's dominance and the fact that Rangers were down to 10 men after 10 minutes. So Atletico has perhaps lacked some fluency and form of late. The likes of Lakos and Nico Williams returned some impressive form at the weekend. So while they certainly, I like to see an upset coming, but I'm going for Rangers to win 2-1. I think Rangers will do it, you know. Right, Frankfurt. Eintracht Frankfurt haven't been as strong as the last couple of months. The 2022 Europa League winners are looking further success ahead of the visit of Tottenham Hotspur. But the first leg of this Europa League quarter-final tie at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last week, Frankfurt, the early goal lead took the lead, but before Spurs equalises around 20 minutes later back to Pedro Porro, and the side ended up sharing a 1-1 draw. So, following departure of Omar Mamus to Manchester City, the winter transfer window, Frankfurt has been quite as strong under the manager. So, as for Tottenham, Spurs continued their miserable campaign at the weekend with a 4-2 defeat to Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Molineux. They continue to drift down the Premier League table. Frankfurt should be favourites with their home advantage, but Tottenham shown signs of being able to really threaten last week, but it could end up being quite fun to watch for the neutral. But I'm seeing why. But if Spurs loses to Frankfurt, then will Ange Postecoglou be sacked? Yes. But I think Spurs will do it 2-1, just about 2-1 or something, or a bit of a scrappy game. I don't know which Spurs can turn up, but I don't know. This club will be a mess. Talking about talking about a mess, Manchester United. It was an entertaining Europa League quarter-final at the Pavileo between Manchester United and Lions. Currently played in 2-2, but Manchester United continue their miserable season, a bit like Tottenham Hotspur. The appointment of Uber Amram during the November international break, the Red Devils suffered a 4-1 humiliation at the hands of Newcastle United at St James's Park. So, Lyon, on the other hand, continue their fight for their Champions League qualification. But I think United will get the job done. I'm going for 2-0 for United. 2-0 for United. Yeah, I'm going to 2-0 United. I think they will. I think they will get a move line just. Yeah, you guessing. Chelsea were always expected to win the Europa Conference League, but they should wrap up this quarter-final tie as League Warsaw travel to Stamford Bridge this week. So Chelsea ran out a first leg of their Europa Conference League quarter-final in his Polish capital of Warsaw. Last week they defeated League Warsaw by 3-0 thanks to Tipri George goal as well as the brace scored by Nino Madugi. But the Blues have managed to 5 victories in 16 Premier League matches, continue their underwhelming form of the last few months with a 2-2 draw against Ipswich Town, fighting back from 2-0 down at Stamford Bridge at the weekend. But League Warsaw, on the other hand, did rotate as heavily, but they suffered a 1-0 loss home Europa Conference League quarter-finalists to Leicester. But Chelsea will once again heavily rotated here with their 3-0 aggregate lead. So although they should still win comfortably, but they may be the case of going through emotionally for the host. But I'm going for Chelsea to win 3-0. So that's my predictions then for the European predictions, Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League and Newcastle versus Crystal Palace predictions. Leave on your comments below and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.